Happy Sabbath, everyone. Thanks, Dan. Of course, here in the U.S., we just had Thanksgiving. They've got some other countries. When does Canada do Thanksgiving? October, yeah. Certain countries have different dates that they put, but we set aside a day to be grateful for the blessings that we have, and we do have a lot. We've got a large and beautiful country. I mean, there's very few places where you can go and see all these different things that are within the same country. And we, of course, have food in abundance. We've got way too much food, if anything, and we have more freedoms than in most places. And, we've got a lot of things to be thankful for. But it just seems like there are still people in society that are just never thankful for anything. They're never grateful for anything. They're not thankful for what we do have. They want things we don't have. And whatever's happening, that's not what should be happening. So today I want to talk about just two contrasting mindsets. That is, I want us to think about how much time we spend one versus the other, and I hope that we'll see that we're mostly on the good side, but that we have some work possibly that we could do so that we're not going to be doing the first one, which I'll describe. So if you could go ahead, we'll jump right into Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18. Book of Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18 reads, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." The word for proud means to be exalted. Like there's a positive meaning to be exalted or to be, majesty. Like when we describe God, that's the positive version. But in the negative version, it means pride or arrogance. And when you're feeling proud, if you're a person and you're proud, not proud as in you're feeling satisfied with an accomplishment. That's a different thing. But when you're feeling proud of, pride within yourself, what do you do? How do you act? Let's go to Psalm 10, where he describes the proud. Psalm 10. Lots of Psalms. I'll get there if I just keep turning the pages. All right, Psalm 10, beginning in verse 2. Where he says, "The wicked in his pride persecutes the poor. Let them be caught in the plots which they have devised. For the wicked boasts of his heart's desire. He blesses the greedy and renounces the Lord. The wicked in his proud countenance does not seek God, for God is in none of his thoughts. His ways are always prospering. Your judgments are far above. As for his enemies, he sneers at them. He has said in his heart, I shall not be moved. I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and oppression, and under his tongue is trouble and iniquity." So a proud man, if you give him the chance, he's going to take advantage of others, and he's going to look down on him because he feels in his heart that he's better than him. He deserves the things that he gets, and they deserve the things that they get. And really, if you go down through history, that's how most societies worked for most of human history. There's a quote from Thucydides from ancient Greece that says, "The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must." And that's kind of what human nature is often like. It's just the way that life is. But that's what the proud do. They abuse other people because if they can get away with it, why not? Related to this is something found over in Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 28. Jeremiah 5:28. He says, "They have grown fat, they are sleek, yes, they surpass the deeds of the wicked, and they do not plead the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper, and the right of the needy they do not defend." So it goes right on with the last verse that we read, that they abuse those around them. They don't care. It says they grow fat. And if you look that word up for to grow fat, Gesenius's lexicon says that the word for fat means to be covered with fat, that is, to cover over the heart with fat so as to render it callous. So not only are they proud, they think they deserve better than everyone else, but they're callous. They stop caring about other people altogether. People who don't care about anyone else, they're willing to do whatever they want. It doesn't matter how much other people suffer or have to do without, just so long as they get what they want. Their own desires are all that matter to them. And then the other word, so it says that in Proverbs it said that they were proud and haughty. That word haughty means something high, as in to be lifted up. And again, it's that same concept. He's sitting above other people. We don't use the word haughty much anymore. But in English, you might say stuck up or entitled. People who think that they're entitled to something. Not because they've done anything to earn it, but just by virtue of being who they are. Well, I'm me. I don't have to do anything. I deserve, the status or the respect. I don't need to earn anything. I already deserve it. Give me the prize. I don't need to win. And these are all things that, people who aren't thankful do. There's another related behavior here. Again, in Psalms, Psalm 94, verses 4 through 7. Say, they utter speech and speak insolent things. All the workers of iniquity boast in themselves. They break in pieces your people, O Lord, and afflict your heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger and murder the fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord does not see, nor does the God of Jacob understand. Again, insolence isn't a word that we use a lot in modern English, but it's like being presumptuous. The Bible uses a couple different words that are related, authok and amar, and they mean to do something with license or with self-intention. So that's kind of the attitude of, I can do whatever I want, no one's there to stop me. I don't care who disapproves. I do what I want. I take what I want. I go where I want, when I want. Have you seen anyone like that on the news or on any YouTube clips or Instagram or anything like that lately? You probably have. Another set of traits associated with this is found in the book of Jude. You want to flip over to Jude, verse 16. Where he says, these are grumblers, complainers, walking according to their own lusts, and they mouth great swelling words, flattering people to gain advantage. Grumbling and complaining. We don't do that, do we? We probably do that more than we should. But the Greek words here, I won't try to, well, actually I did write them down. The word for grumbler is gongustes. That's a fun one. Gongustes, and it means one who discontentedly complains. This is Goldilocks. Nothing's ever right. It's too hot. It's too cold. That's too hard. That's too soft. That's too small. That's too big. Everything has to be just right. Nothing's ever good enough for them. And then the word for complainers is mimsimeros. Again, it's Greek to me. I took Latin. I didn't take Greek in college. And it means one who complains about their lot or blames fate. Again, this is the person Well, they don't know how to fix it, but they know whose fault it is. It's their parents' fault. Or it's their boss's fault. It's the president's fault. Capitalism's fault. The patriarchy's fault. But it's definitely not their fault. Whatever problem they're having, it's someone else's fault, and they'll tell you who if you give them the time. And when you take all of these things together, it describes a person that, this is a person who's just not thankful for anything they've got. They think they're better than other people. They think they deserve more than they have. They think that whatever they want, they should get it, regardless of what it means for other people. And then they're going to whine and complain about everything until they get their way. And it seems like we see an awful lot of these sorts of people online and on the news, and sadly we see them in the grocery stores sometimes, and they drive their cars by us and do things that are crazy. And it seems like we're creating a whole world of people like this, and I would just call this type of person a spoiled brat. They're just not thankful or grateful for anything that they've got. And obviously, we don't want to be like that, even though occasionally we are like that. And I defy anyone who was raised in modern America to tell me that you haven't been like that at some point in time, because we are all way too spoiled. Even if we can spot like the outliers who are extra spoiled, and point that out and condemn that as we should. But so what's the opposite of that? What should we be striving to be like if we know we don't want to be way over there and being just spoiled brats? What do we want to be like? Well, the first thing, if we looked at what we don't want to be like, then what's the opposite of that? The first thing is humility. We want to have humility instead of pride. We started out in Proverbs 16, verse 18, but I didn't read the very next verse. Verse 19 of Proverbs 16 says that it's better to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. So that's where we want to be, even if it means getting less, but being a better person. Humble means being low or being modest. That is, you're not thinking more highly of yourself than you really are. That you can do more than you can. I mean, none of us here are of the high and mighty. I mean, Bill Gates here? No. Elon Musk here? Any presidents in the church that I don't see? No high and mighty here. We are all just people with the same limitations that anyone else has. And we set ourselves up for a lot of disappointment when we try to pretend like we're something that we're not. Jesus warned about this in Luke 14. He gave them a little lesson. Luke 14, starting in verse 7, where he's warning them. He says, "So he told a parable to those who were invited when he noted how they chose the best places, saying to them, 'When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more honorable than you be invited by him. And he who invited you and him come and say to you, give place to this man. And then you begin, in shame, to take the lowest place.'" So he sent you to the back of the line, so to speak. "But when you are invited, go and sit down to the lowest place, so that he may say to you, 'Friend, go up to the higher.' And then you will have glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Again, we saw that word haughty means high. If you're going to place yourself high, the only place you've got to go is down. Whereas at least if you're being modest, you might find out that you're better at something than you thought you were. You'll be pleased. But if you're proud and you think you're already up at the top, well, there's only one way to go, and that's down. Right, so we want to be humble. Also, Paul gives us another thing to strive for in Romans chapter 12, verse 16. Write that one down. Romans 12:16 says, "Be of the same mind toward one another, and do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion." That's like exactly the opposite of what we saw with the haughty and the insolent. All they care about is their own opinion because they're right and they're so high. It's the exact opposite. It's a willingness to admit that we aren't that great, that we don't have all the answers, and that other people have, concerns, and we should take into account other people and the things that they need too. It's not just us, it's not just me, and I don't care about you. We're all in this together. And of course, Paul has a lot to say about this. We'll go over to Philippians 4. Sorry, Grandpa, if I'm taking some of your scriptures. They're good ones. Repetition is a good learning tool. Philippians 4, verse 11 says, "Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content." So that's something else that we should have, is contentment. We should have humility, we should have care for others, we should have contentment. "For I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need." The word for content means to be sufficient for one's independent or external circumstances. So it means that basically you realize that God has given you enough. Wherever you're at, you've got what you need. And if you really needed more, God would have provided more for you. A person who's content recognizes, they can recognize that things aren't perfect. They can try to solve problems, but they're not going to dwell on them. They're going to take the tools that they have and do what they can, and they're going to move on. And, Paul's a good example of that. He says that he had this problem, and he prayed to God to solve it, and what was God's answer? No. Sorry, Paul, it's not going to happen. But Paul says that, it was for his good, because God taught him something through that. And we can be the same way. We can be content with what we've got. We can use it as a growth opportunity, and we can move on. In fact, we can go one step further than just being contented. We can actually be thankful, to be grateful for the things that we do have. We oftentimes go and we look at the Exodus story and the Israelites wandering out in the desert, and they just get miracle after miracle after miracle performed for them for 40 years. But they complain about everything. They complain that, there's no food, there's no water, did you bring us out here to die? And then when he gives them manna, they complain about that too. Like, oh, we're so bored of the same thing over and over again. They're so ungrateful. It's really amazing. The Rational Bible Commentary on Exodus says, and I think correctly, it says, "One of humanity's most common character traits is ingratitude. People either not acknowledging the good others do for them or quickly forgetting that good." But we're told elsewhere that we're supposed to always dwell on the good, on the beautiful, on the things that are lovely, the things, that we can be thankful for. And, we see by doing that, it really puts things in perspective. And we see that really that we've got a lot more to be thankful for than we do to complain about. And when we add that, when we put all these things together, the humility and the care for others, and being content with what we've got, and being thankful for the blessings that we've had, then we come to a completely different picture. The first group of character traits was what I said. That just sounds like a spoiled brat. Someone who doesn't care about anything. They're never happy with anything. They always just want more. And they don't care about anything else. But on the other hand, when you collect these positive character traits, this is someone who's down to earth, someone who's relatable. They're not thinking of themselves more highly than they are. They think about other people too. They don't leave them behind. They don't complain and argue when things don't go their way. They figure out how to get on. And they're happy with the good that God has given them. Even if nothing's ever perfect, they realize that. And this is what I call someone who's mature. And does God want spoiled brats, or does he want mature adults? I think the answer should be pretty obvious. So to the extent that sometimes we are spoiled brats and we complain to God and we hurt one another because we're being selfish, let's just kind of pump the brakes a little bit and try to be a little bit more mature and kind of buck that trend of the world who's just getting increasingly spoiled, and be thankful, be humble, and be good to one another.